All right, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Powerful Perspectives, where we bring world changers, entrepreneurs, athletes, and people that are doing big things in the world. And today, as always, I have a real treat for you. I got my man, Simon Arias, been a friend of mine for a while now. And I got to tell you, man, I do a lot of research before I start these podcasts, before I start these interviews. And man, what you have accomplished in a short period of time in your life is impressive. I literally had to move stuff around on my page of notes just to be able to fit it all in. So you guys are in for a treat today, digging into this guy's story, this guy's life, and everything you've been able to accomplish, man. So thank you for doing this, brother.
Honor, pleasure.
I know your time is valuable, man. So let's dig right into it, man. So born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio. You know, the goal of this podcast is to really be able to uncover those things in your life that really shifted your view on things, shifted your perspective to create this person that is in front of us today that has all this success in business, in life, family, marriage, everything. And so tell me what it was like growing up in Youngstown, Ohio. Take me from little Simon all the way through maybe high school.
Man, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. So my mom had me at 19 years old, and so I grew up on the east side of Youngstown, and on Clinton Street to be exact, and
38
Clinton Street, and that was my great grandmother's home. So we lived with my great grandmother, which would have been my mother's grandmother. And so I'm of Venezuelan and Italian descent. So my father's 100% Venezuelan, my mother's Italian. And at this point, my grandmother, who was my great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, she was the only white woman on the street or in the vicinity. And she just refused to move. You know, there was just bodies dropping, you know, all over the place. And literally it was you become accustomed to dogs barking all night, sirens, you know, just mayhem, you know, all night long in that environment. She's still walking to the store, you know, walking to the corner store down the street, you know, stuff like that. So, I grew up over there. And when I moved into high school, our freshman year of high school, my mom sold that house for $11,000. And we bought one in Campbell, Ohio, which was about 6 minutes away from where we grew up. That house my mom bought for $32,000. So total, both of those combined homes, $43,000 was the cost of both of those homes. In that process, man, I would live a double life, man. I'm so blessed. You know, it's not a sob story. You know, my mom was a single mom, had me young. Dad wasn't in my life. Met him at 28 years old. Grew up in a rough environment, stood in welfare lines for a while, you know, with my mom, watched her work 2-3 jobs, went to night school to get us out of that situation and out of that environment, which she would end up doing, you know, over time. And so if you're working 2-3 jobs, you know, you're probably not able to always focus completely on that child. And so my great-grandmother was in her 80s. So 80s and you know, young kid don't really match as a babysitter. You know what I'm saying? Having kids of your own.
Hard to keep up.
The beautiful Hess clan I see running around. And imagine an 83-year-old,
yeah,
you know,
man,
trying
I have
to
a hard
cover.
enough time at 42.
Right? You got to stretch out and become mentally prepared to deal with these kids. So I would go to my grandmother's house sometimes. My mom would drop me off. She had a full-time job. She cut hair in her basement. For a living, and so she worked all the time, so I would go out and play. So I was just kind of raised by the neighborhood, both of those neighborhoods, and a pitch in from parents, you know, my mom, my grandparents, and kids' parents and all of that stuff. But what they did do is going into high school and a couple years I got during grade school coming up. My grandfather worked at, he was in the steel mills. Eventually he would work in the hospitals, parking cars, helping patients. But my grandfather, my grandmother, my grandmother's husband, my mother, everybody pitched in, and I went to a Catholic high school, Youngstown Ursuline High School. And so people say, "Oh man, you grew up in this area, but you went to this school." So I lived like a double life. I had a good family background. My grandma, everybody's trying, but there wasn't a ton of super structured male guidance. And then I'm being raised in the streets, but then I'm going, I'm like living this double life. So I started hustling at a young age. By the time I was 13 years old, I was doing it all. I mean, I was drinking, driving, smoking, everything else you would think that comes with like
That
thinking
life.
that you're adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Thinking you're a grown man. You know what I mean? And in that environment. And so I learned a lot, through that. But I also learned that I didn't end up wanting to be in jail long term, because I ended up in juvenile multiple times. I ended up, staying in juvenile, when I was 16 years old. My house got shot up. My best friend I lost my freshman year of college got murdered. His daughter lives with me to this day. She's 19 years old. I was able to get her to live with us when she was in 8th grade. Been a part of her and her brother's life the entire time. And but I went on to play football at Youngstown Ursuline, won a state championship there. Was a captain, and then moved on to play college football at Mercyhurst. So that's the gist of the through high school.
So one of the things that stands out through that whole entire story, man, and anybody that knows you today, one of the characteristics that I think stands out the most about you is grit, right? You just have this relentless grit about you that you just never quit no matter what happens. And you're also able to stay calm when everybody else is kind of losing their ability to stay calm. And so telling those stories, how do you feel like growing up in that environment, looking back now and looking at those characteristics that have been developed in you, how do you feel like there's a connection there?
Oh man, a huge connection as far as business and entrepreneurship. I learned to be an entrepreneur at a young age, just the wrong business, but a lot of the same business things applied. So I didn't realize that I was getting, so much experience. And then learning to be a chameleon and learning to be able to adapt to different environments and see the good and bad in all. So I had an opportunity to live around and with and be close to people that are often misunderstood, that don't have parents, on them, don't have the greatest environment. And I would get a lot of the bad from that, but I would also see a lot of the good, that sometimes the poorest folks out there that people would look at and judge were like the kindest hearted, hugest, people with the hugest hearts that you would ever imagine in this world. And I'm so grateful that I came up around that stuff. And then fast forward life, and in my early 20s, I'm a millionaire, and I'm hanging around other people, and I'm growing up in one environment, but then I'm going to a school that has a little bit more diversity. And so I had an opportunity to end up just getting to know all different types of people and how to function in all those environments. I think if anything, tying back, being able to stay calm but also have that grit. I think the grit came from, I was always undersized. I'm still, short. I'm 5'7", 185 pounds. Played strong safety in college. Started for 4 years at that same position. Was 180 pounds, 185 pounds. In high school, I was 165 pounds. 5'7", barely 5'7". And that you had to outwork, outgrit, outgrind, out everything. All the people that were bigger. And then plus, I'm a Browns fan. So you got to have a lot of grit.
You got to have a lot of character.
To deal with the misery
Yeah.
of 20 years of just getting abused, especially by your Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I moved to Pittsburgh. Lived here for 13 years, so I got an up close and personal view of the abuse. And my wife, married my wife, and when you marry your wife, you marry the family. So my wife's whole family Steelers fans, and I just been getting abused, man, for a long time. Finally, we're winning some games, right now. But I think a lot of the grit I have to attribute to being a Browns fan.
Yeah, God intended you to have grit. It's clear,
Yep.
I think. So let's get into, you went to Mercyhurst, you played college football. Obviously, the story continues. You're a captain there. Just leadership is another common thing. Like, I've watched some of the YouTube videos where you say, like, I was always a leader. I was just leading people to the wrong things. And when you get into college, and I know you speak a lot about your high school football coach and then going into college, how did athletics really help shape your perspective when it comes to life? Because, one of the things I admire about you the most is, regardless of what level of success you've ever achieved, like, there is no taking your foot off the gas. Like, there's no going from 70 to 65 miles an hour. It's 70 to 75 to 80 to 85 to 90, and however fast you can end up driving this car you've built for yourself is how fast you want to go. So how did athletics, how did those coaches, how did they have an impact on that never-ending desire to constantly get better?
So, I think athletics, I'll go back to, I played at a powerhouse high school where people told me don't even go there because you're never going to play. So that chip on my shoulder of nobody thinks I'm ever going to play here, let alone be the first school, first to win a state title out of this school in starter and captain. So that chip on my shoulder. And then it was hard. I had to make 3 plays for every 1 play of somebody else. I had to stand out. I had to do extra work, extra film work, extra weights, extra everything just to sniff getting a chance. And then you didn't have 3 chances at that size. You got 1 shot, so it was like every moment for me was a game. Every practice was like, this is it. Like, this is you have to take advantage of this opportunity every single moment.
Did you feel like in any moment you could lose it? Like
100%.
That was your one shot at not just being successful there, but at going back to where you started?
It was in high school, it was the only thing that kept me straight, is that I did not want to lose the opportunity to play football, which is something that I loved. And then I had such great mentors and coaches, that were super disciplined. One of my coach in high school also ran the juvenile justice center at night. He ended up being somebody that would get me out of my cell when I stayed there. It's just a crazy story. And he's still to this day, he's like 65 and just an intimidating looking cat, man. He just built like a brick shithouse, excuse my language. But he prepared us so well. We joke, I think, people our age now about, oh, man, back in the day when we played sports, it would be illegal to do, what we did back then. Now they'd sue you and, all that stuff. Like, this dude was legit hard. You know what I mean? Like,
it was legit illegal what they did
crazy.
back then. If it was done today, yeah.
So I went to college and I'm like, man, I'm short, but I'm ahead of the game when it comes to, like, all this, like, the grind, the grit,
toughness, the mental toughness.
All that, the weights, all of that stuff. So that led into college, and then then we restarted. So I had built myself up, the junior, senior year, that I was a solidified starter, captain, all that stuff. The pressure was still there, but off. And then I had to go to college where it's like you're last on the depth chart now again. Nobody cares what you did before. It's about what you're doing right now. And I'm looking at people that are ahead of me, that are 6'2", 220, 230, fast, could have went D1, and I'm looking and I'm like, they're a sophomore, I'm a freshman. Like, this is going to be, that's a 3-year journey. You ain't going to play if you don't find a way to do something special. And that was back to the drawing board of how do I outwork people? How do I treat every practice like it's a game? Like, this might be your last shot. And until they accidentally give me a chance. And when they give me a chance, I got to be prepared to launch at that moment. And that's exactly what happened in high school. I got 1 shot. In the first game, I was able to take advantage. Same thing in college as a freshman, redshirt freshman. They gave me one shot. I was able to take advantage of it. So I think that transferred over a lot into business, just being undersized.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because when you're telling that story, I'm sitting there thinking, like, how many people you have transferred that experience to. Like, being able to show people, like, you got this 1 shot to build something great. In a situation in your business that's, changed so many people's lives. And you have this special thing about you that enables you to transfer that experience to people. And it's rare. It's not something that anybody could walk into this business and do. And so the combination of things, as you're explaining that, the combination of things that has led to you being able to build what I would refer to as an empire in the insurance business it just makes sense when you hear the story, right? It's like you were being, kind of groomed for this scenario that most people wouldn't be prepared for when they entered, right? Especially at such a young age. And so you leave Mercyhurst, and that Mercyhurst in Erie, correct?
Yep.
So that's another thing. You're up there. It is freezing cold and
frozen
4
tundra.
feet of snow all the
Yes.
time, right?
Yes.
So just another thing to point out there. Just add more grit, right?
Yep.
So you leave there and you find your way. Walk us through how you found your way into American Income.
Grace of God, I was put my resume online for a college class that they told me that's what I had to do. I was a senior. I just did it just to get the credit for it, and we had to do an interview, and prove it and all that stuff. And so I did it, and this company calls me. American Income calls me. Guy calls me out of Cleveland, Ohio. I'm in Erie, and I take the interview because I had I was last second, and I'm like, man, I got 1 week. I better just take this thing. And so I go up there, and I see my first suit was a hand-me-down from my uncle, who is 6 foot tall. I'm not, and I still got the tie. And I went in there for the interview, and fell in love with the guy that did my interview. That gut instinct. Something told me, like, if this dude was selling paper towels, I would have bought into the vision, even though I had no intentions on going there to take a job. And fast forward, that guy is the godfather of my daughter. I'm the godfather of his daughter, first and only born child. But he was my mentor and boss when I first started. And so I think that, they say you can't pick your parents. I think I got blessed with some great coaches along the way, because, when you don't have a male, father, your coaches become like that father figure to you. So I got lucky, in some of those areas, but then I got lucky again coming into our business with a couple good mentors, Jim Serace, Marcus Smith. Jim Serace was a youth pastor, and he was a Christian first and a business person second. And Marcus was a absolute savage. Like, he could have coached Navy SEALs, So I got this balance of no BS, no excuses.
And that was
savagery.
familiar territory for you.
Familiar. This is normal to me.
Yeah.
So what was abnormal to others that couldn't deal with Marcus, Marcus is like a coach for 1%ers. You know what I mean? The other 99, he's going to run them off. But the 1%ers, he's going to take you to a level that you couldn't even imagine being at if you could deal with them. Yep. And then his partner is like, yeah, I'm just kind of here to lead people to the Lord. You know what I mean? And so I got that balance, and I was one of the people that he led to the Lord. And that would prove to be the foundation of everything for me. Not that I turned perfect. I'm still a work in progress, but at 22 years old, to have somebody that you admire and look up to that has a lot of money, I wanted to make a lot of money, that's making a lot of money, but is pointing you in a direction of giving, tithing, humility, how you treat others, all of that stuff would just check me on anything that other people wouldn't check me on. Anytime I even sniffed like a little bit of arrogance or anything, he would just check me on that stuff. And so those things would end up being the foundation. And so I got lucky that way. I got lucky with the mentors, coming in and the people that I looked up to and the people that I admired. And that was the beginning of my journey. In that first year, I came out and straight commission and made a couple $100,000, my first year. And the rest was history. I never thought I was going to make that much money, until I was like 50, 60 years old, let alone my first year out of college. So
how did, when you talk about faith, and, obviously it's a major part of your life now, but being a 22-year-old kid, for lack of a better description,
sure.
And probably lacking a lot of the things that other kids were exposed to, right? Like a lot of instability on your rise to 22. And then all of a sudden, like, all the stability arrives. Like, if there's one thing that American Income provides, it's like that structure and that playbook of how to execute, how to do things. Yep. And then when you weave the faith part of that into there, it's almost like the perfect prescription to create success in a person that, like, it seems to me, and this is what I want to get your perspective on, that, like, that was almost the final missing piece right? It was like, you had built this engine that was able to perform at such a high level, and then faith gets injected into that, and it like changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
How did it change your perspective about business, your future, life in general? Maybe looking back at what you had been through as a kid, how did it change it?
Everything. So much that I got to fight it because I want to impact the world. I want to impact people across the country, not just people with the exact same feelings or thoughts or beliefs or, thing as me. So I just got to be careful. I don't run people off with the passion that I have based on what it's done for me. I don't think I would be able to be anything without it. Maybe not everybody's that way, but me personally, I think if I don't have the faith that was brought to me, there's no way at a young age. At 26, I was a millionaire. And so at 26, in the journey to get to that point, there's also a lot of money being made. And when you're making that type of money, at 24 years old, I'm not going out very often at all. Because I'm afraid to lose everything that I got, but my foundation of it in the way that I'm acting and thinking is through the lens of what would the Lord want me to do? What would Jesus do? And I don't want him to see me as a person that was a bad steward with all he had given me, because I already felt like I didn't deserve it all. I was still in a dream, in my first couple of years, just scared to death of like, is this really happening to me, or is this kind of a trip? This ain't going to really happen.
Again, feeling like you could lose it.
There's no way this is going to keep happening. Yeah. This is the way my life is going to go. There's no way. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just keep giving of my resources. So, if the man's looking at me, from upstairs, he's like, I'm going to keep blessing that kid with more because he keeps on giving. And I didn't want to allow anything to get in my way, from a spiritual standpoint. So having that foundation gave me the ability to make certain choices, that a lot of young people, wouldn't make because of that accountability. Although it wasn't perfect. I look back on things, at 23, 24, 25, I'm 38. There's things that I would have done differently. Sure. There's things that I made mistakes on, but there's a lot of things that didn't happen that would have happened if it wasn't for, that foundation, even when it, rolls into my wife. I met my wife when I was 24 years old. She's the first person in my life that I didn't cheat on. That was my culture, where we come from. The culture there really isn't a supportive culture of being a one-woman man. You're actually teased, if you're a one-woman man. And so to get into the other culture where my mentors would check me, on stuff like that, laid the foundation for me to be, a husband and a father, to where, I'm proud to say I've never cheated on my wife a day in my life, and through ups and downs and everything in between, never broke. And I think that, that relationship with the Lord, everything wouldn't have played out that way. And then I wasn't afraid to share it with people in my business, because that's what I learned from my parents in this business is they shared their faith in their business. So I shared my faith in this business and spread my faith, through, and not everybody liked it. Not everybody grasped it. But a lot of young people did grab it and grasp it, and I've had an opportunity to watch it impact, other people's lives. I've just always heard that voice in my mind that if you get about his work, his work being the Lord's work, if you get about his work, he'll get about your work, and you can't outgive God. So I think just the more that I've been a good steward with that stuff, the more that I've been blessed with not only resources, but people, which is our greatest resource, just some of the best people in the world, and I look back of like, how did I even get these people? To me, it's like such a blessing. It can only be God.
Yeah. I often think the same thing, man. There's been, pivotal moments in my life where, I don't think I was prepared as well as I should have been. And maybe that's why success, or a certain level of success, was held back, right? And you look back at your life and you're like, man, from the moment that this all came together, and from the moment that I saw that side, the spiritual side of things, clearer, everything just took off like a rocket. And, I think I've told you this before, but just so that everybody knows, like you have been a massive influence in my life when it comes to faith. I don't know if you know that or not.
No clue.
But spending time with you And you said to me once, like, man, what you're going to do in your life, you got to make sure that side of things is straight, because that's the foundation of everything. And I ended up living pretty close to the church that we both go to. And there was a Sunday morning where I said to Lori, I said, I'm going to go over to Victory and see what's up, you know. And I walked in there, and everything in my life changed, man. Like, everything changed overnight. And so
I'll never forget the day that I was, you know, walking through the little lobby area there, and I see you in the water,
yeah,
you know, getting baptized with your children,
yeah,
and your family. And you know, just such a great thing for generations of people in your family. You talk about leaving a legacy. You know, I don't know, you know, if there's anything better that a father could do, or a man could do, or a husband could do than what you did, you know, leading by example. And me being able to sit there and, you know, whether it was on accident or part of his plan, you know, just me being able to watch that happen was special, man.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, super proud of you. A lot of respect for you for that, man.
Yeah, likewise. So for me to you, thank you, man, because it really made a massive impact on me. And I tell that story, I never mention your name, but when I'm telling the story, people that follow me have probably heard me tell it hundreds of times. And I always say, there was a guy that I look up to that was a mentor to me that told me, you better get that part of your life right. And man, it changed everything. So thank you. So going back to Saray Smith, you know, you're in Cleveland. You spend how many years in Cleveland before you come to Pittsburgh?
2 years and some change. 2 years and a couple months.
2 years and some change. So walk me through what that looks like. You're crushing it up there, obviously, and they come and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you want to be the youngest guy to ever be a state general agent for
Lord
the company?
tapped me on the shoulder. I was doing well, way beyond I ever thought I would anything I thought would happen, to the point where I didn't think I was going to leave there ever. I just bought a house. You know, I bought a house almost $500,000. Just turned 24 years old, in a nice neighborhood. I was laying the foundation to stay. And I don't know, one day I just woke up out of bed one day, it was on a Sunday, and just had this urge and feeling that I was supposed to go, you know, start my own business, you know, and leave everything behind. And it was a lot of money coming in. And I met with Marcus, you know, who was the guy that called my resume, was a mentor of mine, and walked him through, you know, what I was feeling. And it was nothing but love, you know, nothing but support, nothing but love. And even in that transition, it was nothing but love and nothing but support. And, you know, that's where you really see, you know, where somebody, you know, how they feel. You know, I think it was twofold. You know, Marcus says that he was that way because I gave him that. You know, a lot of people leave the business and they do damage, you know, more damage on the way out, you know, for whatever reason. I never tried to do anything but leave that place in better condition than it was when I found it, and do anything I could to show my loyalty and love for those people and what they did for me. And on the way out, they treated me the exact same way. And so when I started in Pittsburgh, I started with 3 people and my mom, and I had no idea where anything was in Pittsburgh. And I have no patience. They were supposed to show me an office on a Monday. And Saturday morning, I drove from Youngstown, my mom's house, and drove to Pittsburgh. This was the first exit I thought was Pittsburgh. I jumped off the Wexford exit on accident and drove up 19 and started calling people until somebody would show me an office. The first office anybody showed me, I took it and signed a 5-year lease. No questions asked. And it moved, and it was right next door to Pizza Roma, where I would eventually meet the owner of Pizza Roma's daughter, who is Nat D, who's with me since day one, and has been a pillar in our business, and was also my wife's college roommate, and she introduced me to my wife. And so I'm grateful, you know, that I was not patient and got off that exit.
So if I go back though, man, you know, you're 2 years and change in the business, not even 3 years. So you're making great money. But if you're looking back at it, like considering the resources necessary to get a business off the ground,
Yep.
Looking back at that now, What do you think about that? Like, at the time, I'm
glad I
you
didn't
had some
have any
money
sense.
saved.
Yeah,
but,
I had like $100,000, saved up.
Yeah, which is in the grand scheme of things, to do what you've done here, nothing.
No, the first 3 months I went down to, I had 3 people in my mom, and my mom was overlooking she would oversee the bills and paying the bills and stuff. And my mom like never had any money saved up. You know what I mean? Like, I love my mom. She's a hard worker. She's done a lot for me, and that's my dog. But, I don't think she's ever had, 10 grand saved up, or anything like that. So to have $100,000 plus in there, she sees that, and she's watching it go down, 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 down. I'll never forget the day, I'm like 4 or 5 months into starting this business here, and she's like bawling, sobbing in my office. She's like crying because all of my money went down, and I was down to like $10,000, in that account over a 5-6 month span. And I didn't have the same pressure on me that she was feeling. She was feeling like that's more money she ever saw in her life, and it's gone. And, maybe that's where the not so good part of my experience, helped me, because I had saw that type of money before, at a young age. So it wasn't that much mentally, to me. But I also had a confidence that what we were doing was going to end up paying off. And it took me a couple years from when I started to get back to making the money, that I was making in my second year. It took me that second year of business to build this thing to get back to making that type of money.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. And so for those people listening that aren't familiar with Simon's story, 2008, he moves here to Pittsburgh. He just told you the beginning of the story, and we'll go back and get into all these details. But today, 24 offices, how many states?
14 states.
And I was just watching your Instagram story today about the idea of opening a cigar and wine bar.
Yep.
And I don't know who that person was that had that conversation with you, but man, you should send them a Christmas card every year for sure.
I do all the time.
Because, at the end of the day, man, it is those mentors, and it's not always those people that we spend a lot of time with, but those people that are willing to embrace the conflict of telling you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear, that really redirect us. And there's a lot of those, unsung heroes in everybody's journey. So, first couple years you're struggling. And so, 5 years after you come to Pittsburgh, you get engaged to your wife. How long were you in that dating before you got engaged?
5 years.
So you'd met her as soon as you got here?
Yep, first year, end of my first year.
Got it. And so how did that change you? So you just, kind of shared, staying true to one woman. How did that change you? Because that is, it seems to me like the puzzle comes together, because there's the faith concept, that plays a part, I'm sure, in keeping all that straight for you, right? And then, you're being true to yourself, you're being true to your wife, you're being true to your business. Did everything just kind of seem to come together and get clear for you during that time?
Foundational. As a young man, as a young person, can I be candid?
Of course.
All right. I think young men that, they're usually hunting at, 23, 24, 25, if they're not, tied down, to somebody. So I think that was something that allowed me to have a foundation where I wasn't out partying looking for a girl every weekend.
No doubt.
I had it, already at home, that foundation. Also, my wife was completely opposite, than me. I joke with her, she's, I say Hakuna Matata. She's like, we got dinner at 6 o'clock. We get there at 6:10. No big deal. You know what I mean? And I'm like, if we ain't there at 5:50 and we got dinner at 6 o'clock, I'm going to need to do 100 up downs. You know what I mean?
We live the same life, just so you know.
I lost that battle.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I voluntarily waved the white flag on that one. Did wonders for our relationship, to take an L on that one, to where I just started doing, if dinner was at 6 o'clock, I would tell her 5:30. So I knew we would be there by 6. Then switch it up on her sometimes, because then she'd catch on. So then I'll tell her the truth, a lot of times. And so I keep her on her toes. She doesn't know if I'm telling her the proper time or if it's a half hour, notice in advance. But I think her personality of just kind of, she's strong as a person, but she's also more chill and even keel, where everything was a 10 to me. everything was like, I'm on 10, you know, at 24, 25, everything is a 10 to me. Everything is urgent. Everything is a big deal. I'm like just wired like I drank a pot of coffee.
It's still a 9.9.
I'm still there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But she's like, she had brought me this ability where you say, man, you can handle things and just stay calm and stay. I think a lot of that has to do with a balance of my growth in my faith and understanding that I'm not really in control. I got to just trust the Lord in some of these things. And the other one was just my wife, you know, over time, just watching her and us being around each other. It's just not that big of a deal. Like the stuff that I would make a big deal about was just not that big of a deal. And so I learned to just relax, you know, over a lot of those things. So I think that's how having that relationship, you know, kind of impacted me the most.
Yeah, I like to tell the people that I coach, man, I remind people of this all the time because we tend to overthink a lot, you know, especially high performers. And I always say to them, like, the one thing you always got to remember is you're just not that important. Like most other people don't think about things at the same level as you do. Self-analyzation, whatever it may be, being hard on yourself, making sure you're there by 6 o'clock, taking ownership of that in such a deep way. If you're not, like nobody else really cares that much, right? And I think a lot of times we are harder on ourselves than we need to, and many times it's the female that balances that for guys like you. So. So you got engaged in 2013, married in 2014. What's going on in the business around that time? Is it still growing like crazy? Is that hard to juggle? Planning a wedding, getting married, changing your life? What's that like?
We're rocking, you know, at that point. Business is crushing. You know, we were doing some things, breaking some records, you know, fastest to ever hit certain numbers, you know, in the company's history, you know, over 60 years. And but planning the wedding and building a house and all of that stuff, even to this day, you know, I think my wife and I have got this rhythm, you know, to where she kind of has a role and I have a role, not in like a male dominated or female dominated role. Like we just know what our jobs are. You know, if your job is to play defense and my job is to play offense, you know, we just understand that role. And so I've just learned, you know, like my role when it comes to that stuff is like to go grind it out and make the money and let her plan the wedding and me nod and say, yeah, you know what I mean? I like it. I didn't need to get too super involved other than paying for it. And then same thing when it came to building our first house and in the process of building a house right now, I just kind of like get out of her way and just support her and let her do her thing. And she does the same thing for me, you know, of she doesn't get all up in my business, you know what I mean? And telling me all the time, you know, what I need to do and you know, mixing up or nagging or if I got to travel or work hard or, you know, whatever. She just like holds the fort down at home and never makes me feel bad, you know, for working. A couple times she had to check me and I needed it, you know, where I was just getting too far off. Or I needed to focus while I was home in certain areas, and it just made me a better dad, better husband, you know, all the way around. But for the most part, I don't get the, you know, a lot of the stress levels that a lot of business people get and business folks get, you know, they get a lot of nagging at home from, you know, from stuff. And I'm just blessed that I don't have that. So I think it's allowed for me to be free to grow and do, you know, what it is that we need to do.
Yeah, to create. And I think that's so important, man, for everybody that's listening that, you know, is considering getting into entrepreneurship or, you know, has had a dream of building a business. Like, I really believe, you know, from my standpoint and, you know, having people on our team, you have tons of people on your team, you know, the one thing that I see hold people back the most is those outside relationships. And whether it's, you know, the relationship with their family and their family's in their ear or a spouse that's in their ear. And so the selection of that person that is going to support you is so important, man. And I live the same life, man. We are so blessed to have people that just, you know, that women that just support what we do. And really, you know, for those entrepreneurs, man, the number one thing you have to have is somebody that believes in your dream as much or more than you do. And, you know, for me, that's always been Lori. I mean, dude, when the times when I thought everything was going down in flames, she didn't flinch, man.
Wow.
Never, you know, never hesitated for it to be any different. And I remember when I was starting the Pavement Group 3.5 years ago, and I was standing in the entryway of the house that I live in now, and my parents were like crazy about me starting this business, right? Like, you got kids and this, what if it doesn't work? And my wife was calm as a cucumber, man. And I'm like, that helped me stay grounded. And my dad says, well, what if it doesn't work? And I said, man, I guess we'll be having that conversation in a different house, maybe. I don't know,
Right.
you know, but at the end of the day, the only thing that really mattered to me was that she believed in it. And you know, I know it's the same for you. It's like,
No doubt.
you know, you can't get there alone, right? Those people that say, you know, oh, I'm self-made. You are not.
No doubt.
Nobody
Yeah,
is.
that's
And
ego.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So obviously, you know, going from one office to 24 offices, and I know in your Instagram story you said at the time you had 3 offices, and that wasn't that long ago. So, like, walk us through that growth pattern of what that looks like going from, you know, 2008 to 2021 having 24 offices. You know, it took a while for you to get that vision big enough to start expanding, and then it was like an all-out assault that you just put the pedal to the floor and started expanding in a way that, honestly, like, from the outside in, I was like, wow, man, this is super aggressive. I've never seen anybody do it at that rate and be able to hold it together. And you've successfully done that. So walk us through what that looks like.
First, it looks like, thank God, you know, that I had a mentor that I respected, that I asked that question to, and he's the only billionaire that I know. And God bless him for spending time with me. You know, why would you want to spend time with me? You know, and he let me in and still has a relationship with me to this day. And I told him what I was thinking about doing. You know, at the time I was I was late 20s and making some good money, and was able to save up some money. And I was thinking about opening up a cigar and wine restaurant next to Jimmy Wan's. I had the whole vision, you know, behind it. And he asked me, you know, a couple questions that would change my life. And I knew he knew what he was doing, because he was a billionaire and I wasn't, you know. So I said, look, you know, he said, well, if you want to open up this wine and cigar bar, first, let's talk about how much you know. So scale of 1 to 10, how much do you know about wine? You know, I said like a 6. And now that I look back on it, I think I'm like a 6 or a 7 now. I probably was a 4. And he said, well, how much do you know about cigars? You know, scale of 1 to 10. I told him 6. You know, I probably was a 4, you know, back then. And he said, okay. Now he said, how much do you think it'll cost you, you know, everything to make this business happen, to start it off the ground? You know, we said maybe $1 million. And he said, well, how many hours do you think you're going to need to spend in that business in the beginning to get it to go? You know, and I said, well, maybe an extra 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week. And then he said, well, how much money do you expect to make, you know, on this investment, this business? You know, I said maybe 100,000, 200,000 a year. And he said, well, let me ask you, you know, if you put an extra 20 to 30 hours a week into your own business, if you have that much time and you put it into your own business, where on a scale of 1 to 10, how well would you say that you know your business? You know, I said about a 9 or a 10. He said, well, you put it into something that you're a master at, and you put the extra 20, 30 hours there. And if you put an extra $1 million in your business right now, what do you think would happen? How much money do you think you would make? And I didn't even need to answer the question. You know, by the time he was done, it was like 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
You knew the math inherently.
I knew it was done. You know what I mean? And I mean, it was like everything I hoped it to be in the beginning. Of like, he brought me in. It was like 1 o'clock. He lit up a cigar, let me light one up in his office. You know what I mean? And it was like everything I had hoped for it to be. And then it went downhill real fast. You know, like over 10 minutes, the meeting was pretty much like done. Like, you know what the hell you need to do.
Go get to work.
We spent some cool time after that talking and stuff, but the advice that I needed took him about 10 minutes to get through to me, and I knew exactly. I was ready to pack my stuff up and get out there and get to work. I knew exactly what I needed to do. But I think where it came from is a lot of young people get influenced by social media and stuff. You hear people saying, you're supposed to have 7 streams of income, or you ain't shit, or you're supposed to have 5 streams of income, or you don't have no stability, or, you know, whatever. And I've learned from him and from doing this thing that it's really, that's not the truth in the beginning. Down the road, you know, maybe it's cool to diversify and dabble in some other things. You know, I'm involved in real estate, and I got a consulting company. I got some other things going on now, but everything happened from me betting on what I knew and putting it back into my own business. And I've lived below my means, through that process, that, I've bought nice cars, I've had nice things, I've took nice vacations, but it's never been to the amount that I probably could have done. Even to this day, there's people that in my business, in my own company, that have nicer homes than I have. There's people in my own business that have nicer cars than I have. My house is nice, but I don't think it's anything somebody would drive by, right now and say, oh my God, I think that guy makes, X amount of millions of dollars a year. But it's a nice home, and I'm grateful. It's better than something that I ever thought I would have. And I've been there for 8-9 years. And before that, I lived in a place with Natalie for $1,200 a month, 1-car garage. I lived there for a couple years. When I was making a lot of money, I was living in a $1,200 a month place. And so I've just been living below my means for a while, and reinvesting into the business, and still increasing gradually my lifestyle, but just reinvesting into the business. And I'm so sold out on what happens after that, because I've watched it happen time and time again. It's really an easy formula, but it takes a lot of discipline to not treat yourself as immediately. If you've been grinding so long and you finally come up, on some money, it's hard to not just like splurge, because you feel like you deserve it. You've been and to fight that urge and to reinvest back into your business is probably the best advice I can give to somebody.
So you get that advice. And if I know you immediately like came to the office and literally drew it all out.
Yeah, immediately.
What you were going to do.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Do not pass go. Come straight to the office and dial it all out. And so what year was that when you got that advice? Do you remember?
Well, I know I was, I think I was 29, 28 or 29, somewhere in that transition. So 10 years ago. So this would have been 2011, let's say.
Yep. And then so you started the process of prospecting other territories to go into, what was available, what you could do. And then obviously the biggest thing in any business is acquiring the talent to be able to do that, right?
The biggest.
And so walk us through what that looks like. What is your playbook when because in a lot of cases, you're probably not, most business owners don't share the full vision because other people a lot of times don't get it. Even the highest performers think you're crazy if you actually share everything, right?
Yep.
So like quietly, you're behind the scenes coaching these people on how to build the bench to be able to deploy all these people to 24 offices. It takes a massive amount of talent to be able to do that. So what does that look like from a strategy standpoint? How does that shift your thinking in your business? Because it's not just reinvesting, but it's executing on a different level.
Yeah, it's investing into people in your leaders and stuff. So I think over the years I've just learned the most important thing is acquiring the right talent, and then balancing that development. A lot of people can acquire talent, but then they don't develop the talent. They think that if you acquire the talent, it's just supposed to do it. And it's never that easy, putting in that time with the people to develop them. And if you're going to develop somebody, it first starts with the relationship. And you can't skip that part of it. And the relationship starts with your time that you give. And most people are busy and don't have time. So you have to make the freaking time to invest into that person, care about that person, develop a relationship with that person. And that's a process. And sometimes you lose in that process. You may develop somebody and pour a lot into them, and they may not end up with your company. But if you do it for the right reasons, I've taken the approach of, this is where the faith comes back into, of like, man, maybe this person is just supposed to be in my life for this period of time, and I'm not afraid to give them everything that I got, because if they leave, I still feel like maybe that is what my mission was supposed to be for that person. And through having that thought, I don't get discouraged if people leave or I pour into them or whatever. If they go and do something good or great, then I feel like I did my job. And if I take that approach, 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, the people are going to stick with me. They are going to be developed. They are going to appreciate that, and they're going to continue to grow, other people. And the other 3 people, that don't, I'm happy to live life through watching them, be successful, and me not have to root against them because they're not, with our organization anymore or something like that, bearing that type of, negativity. So I think it's just developing the frickin' person, putting the time into it, in acquiring top talent. And to me, acquiring top talent is, it depends on what your business is, what you would describe as top talent. So like my top talent here may not even make the roster at another place based on what skill set you need to have for that business. Shit, I may not make the roster at a certain place, you know, depending on what that business skill set is and what you need to do and have. And at the same token, other people, you know, stars and other industries, you know, come here, you know, they wouldn't make it a year. You know, it's like, what is the person that you're, identify who is your target person, target market, what skills do they need to have, what personality types, what are the things that those people have, and then identifying those people, where to find those people. And to me, my best people have been found by me personally and by our people personally. But just speaking for myself, like a lot of my top people, I have met them personally. Not that I knew them before, but I've bumped into them somehow. I meet them somewhere and I see them in action, because people could say anything on a resume. Somebody called my resume, so I'm not saying that you can't go off of a resume. Somebody did for me, thank God. But I think people can say anything on a resume. You know, people can look great on a resume. But once you get some reps at it and experience at it, I think when you meet the person, you'll really find out, you know, if they got the juice.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, the common theme here is frequency and consistency, right? It's like, you know, how often are you doing it and how consistent are you at doing it frequently? And that's what it comes down to. It's a batting average, right? You're not going to, you know, bat 1,000 trying to get the highest performers. You're going to miss, right? And when you miss, to your point, the key to that is just not taking it personally and being able to go from one to the next with the same amount of enthusiasm, continue to pour into those people. So 2015, man, you have your first daughter and you started Inspiring Minds in the same year. So that's a little crazy. Walk me through what drove you first and foremost to start Inspiring Minds? Like, what was the idea behind that? What was the fire that was burning in you that made you want to do that?
Yeah, I know when, you know, where I missed, you know, where I could have went real wrong and where I did go wrong, thank God it didn't affect me, you know, long term forever, is in the after school piece, in the summer piece. You know, after school when my mom was working and people were working, you know, I was doing some wild stuff in the summer, you know, while they're working all day, you know, I'm like in some wild stuff. And until it came to a point where I couldn't be controlled, you know, from it. I was getting too old. I was older. I didn't have a male influence. I'm like, I ain't listening to nobody no more. And I needed my ass whooped, you know, is really what I needed. But I from like an older male, you know, role model, you know, figure, but I think it inspired me to go back. First my hometown was first. I felt like guilty. I felt guilty that I had left Youngstown, Ohio, and hadn't really done anything to impact people there. And I felt like unfinished business, you know, in that area. So that feeling of guilt was one feeling of that I owed because I knew what those kids were going through. And so I started first to give financially because that's what my mentor taught me to do is you got to give. The more you give, the more you receive. So I have goals every month on what I need to give, want to give on purpose. And so I found a place in Youngstown. It was actually outside of Youngstown. I contributed to for a while. One day I found a time and I drove an hour and a half to go see where my money was going. And I fell in love with it at the worst time. You know, I fell in love with it while my wife was just pregnant, you know, with Sienna. And we started to open up, you know, our first Inspiring Minds, branched that out from Warren, Ohio to Youngstown, Ohio. Carried that vision, you know, over there, did fundraisers, you know, all of that. And it's still up and running and rocking, you know, to this day. And then I started to get the same feeling about Pittsburgh. You know, then I'm like, man, you know, you're doing all this work in Youngstown. You've been in Pittsburgh for 13 years, and this is where you made your money, and this is where you found your wife, and these are the people that have looked out for you, and all you're doing is doing everything in Ohio. So it's like, all right, we got to do this in Pittsburgh. And it's never the right time. You know, it's like, don't have time for this. But I knew that if I keep waiting for the right time time was never going to come. There'd be more kids, more offices, more businesses, more this, more that. And I'm like, we just got to do it. And so we're up and running, right now in Pittsburgh at Stowe Rocks. Something that I didn't tell you yet is it's in the transition phase right now. It's actually going to be, because Inspiring Minds, and it still is in Youngstown. I support them heavily in Youngstown, Warren, everywhere. That is another man's vision that he started. These are franchises of them. His name's Derek Tolles, great person. That's the CEO of Inspiring Minds. Here in Pittsburgh is going to be called Steel City Impact here in Pittsburgh. And this is founded by the board, here in Pittsburgh. I was able to play a role in that, and we're going to run that ourselves and be able to have a little bit more freedom and flexibility to do some things and help the kids spiritually also, mind, body, and spirit. We're not going to take government funding, so we have a little bit more flexibility to do the things that we want to do.
Amen, dude. Amen to that. All right, so the toughest question of the hour, maybe. So June 29th, 2015, I remember this in my own life. So give me a quick 1 minute, 2 minute description of what it feels like the first time you see your daughter.
Oh, man. Emotional. No feeling like it. Nothing could have prepared me for it. So much love, joy. I was nervous, while my wife was having the baby. All these crazy thoughts go through your mind. It's like, is my wife going to be okay? Is the baby going to come out with all its fingers and toes? Is it going to be healthy? Is everything okay? Because not every child, comes out, when it comes out, is people have problems, a lot of times that people aren't aware of, can't plan for. So the first thing is like, man, I'm just so grateful that I even have a baby and that it actually happened. And then they're immediately just motivated, just inspired. Like, now you actually really got some real purpose. Before that, it was just me. And then it was my mom, and I took care of my mom, retired my mom. And then it was like my wife, but she was okay, and she's strong. I'm like, she can hold it down. She can handle herself. But when the baby came out, when Sienna came out, it was like straight, I got purpose now. Like, there is no, this person is depending on you. We got to make sure that we make it happen. I was just motivated.
Yeah, I remember that feeling, man, of like, there's like a light bulb that goes off in an instant, and you think to yourself, like, this little human being cannot survive without me. Like, there's no other explanation. It's like such an overwhelming feeling, and I can literally go back there in an instant and remember what it was like, and remember those days following, thinking like exactly what you just said. It's like, now we go. Like, now I have a real purpose. Yep. Now it all changes. And so so soon after that, 2015, you get into 2016, and you kind of get into this whole social media world, right? Like, things start to change. You're starting to figure out. And I would assume that in your business dynamic that, kind of being on social media is a great way to be able to, attract that talent, to, especially from the aspect of, trying to attract people with those characteristics that you're looking for. One of the things that I've found on social media is the more you're yourself, the more you're authentic, the more that you're going to attract those same people, and the more you're going to turn off those people that don't belong, right?
Definitely. And
so social media has been a tool that has changed my life. I know that it's probably changed yours in life and business too. How has social media changed your perspective, and how has it helped your business?
Well, I think I've learned that social media can do a lot of good or a lot of bad. I think social media could use you, or you can use it. And so I've learned how to focus on the good that social media can do, how to use social media, and how to not be used by social media. And what I mean by used by social media is I spend a little bit of time engaging a little bit of seeing others' stuff, but I don't spend a lot of time consuming social media. I do a lot of producing of social media and giving, not a ton of scrolling. I mean, I do still. I'm human. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I scroll some, I comment some, I like some. I get involved, but not as much, I think, as people would expect. I don't engage in negativity. I'm like, I'm not even really friends with people on there or stuff that's like, just always negative, because I think that can wear people down a lot. We've built a business. A lot of our business has been, I can attribute to, having some stuff in social media. I've learned to not believe everybody on social media because you're only going to see people's highlight reels on social media. And I even tell people that about myself of, when they say, oh man, you're awesome. You're great. You're, this, and people that don't know me personally, of they wouldn't know if I was awesome or not, and all I'm showing you is my highlight reels. I'm not showing you my worst scenarios of sometimes I fall short. Sometimes I say stuff I shouldn't say. Sometimes I get pissed off and do something I shouldn't do. It's not often. It's nothing, at the level I would have done it 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but I'm human. And I know just by those small things in my own life that I know everybody is out there showing their highlight reels. And I know people that are really fronting, really like you. I even saw one of your podcasts where you talk about here's how you know somebody's a fake or a fraud or something like that. That was a really good one. When you were making some really good points, man, because there is a lot of phonies out there, and that is a thing that you can do with social media. We can rent a car, we can talk and say anything you want. That's why they say talk is cheap. Anybody could talk, anybody could say anything that they want. People control, and I think that the social media has built my skin even thicker because with doing a lot of good, touching a lot of people that don't know you from the outside looking in, it provides a platform for people to hate on a whole nother level. And a lot of what I do is showing what we do in some of the lifestyle, of some of the cars that the people drive. And, I know for me, I'd be lying if I say, the only reason why I drive nice cars and take people on private planes is just to show people what's possible and all that. I like them too.
Right.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But a huge portion of it is that I know people don't want to really take advice from somebody that isn't winning and looking like they're winning. And I know how many young people I've gotten them to listen to me in Youngstown when I pull up in a convertible Bentley and they come over there to talk to me, and I'm teaching them how I wasn't a rapper, I wasn't an athlete, this is the thing, and I don't cheat on my wife, and here's the things that you do. And now I got their ears and eyes open to somebody that they look up to over a car or over a piece of jewelry or over something, and use it as a tool to fish them out to lead them to other things. So that's how I've been able to use the social media platform.
Yeah, no question, man. And I couldn't agree more. And I think there's something to that. When you look at, you got to meet people where they are to be able to get them out of potentially a bad situation. And, one of the things that people get criticized a lot for on social media is showing cars. And for me, it's the guys that don't own the cars. Like, if you own the car, cool, man. Don't make it all about the vehicle, but that is very important to a lot of people. Those are things that really motivate people to go to a new level. And, when people are able to be motivated, they're like in a bad place.
My high school football program, right now, the coach called me and the kids he's trying to surprise them with a new helmet they've never had. The school's never rocked this helmet, before. And the uniforms are sick. He's such a good coach. He's such a good guy. Like, people that end up in his program, their kids, as a parent, you couldn't put them with too much better of a person. Like, this dude is a beast of a person. Great dad, great husband, the whole deal. But a lot of kids are going to come to that school because the uniforms are sick. Yeah. Like Oregon. You know what I mean? Where they had like the uniforms, all the gloves, that, right? Yeah. And so a lot of times, if especially like for me, this is a young, like we do a lot of young people, coming in here. They're attracted to some of the flash, and I try to teach them, and we try to teach them, it's not about the flash don't make you a better person. It doesn't, that's where we can teach them mind, body, spirit, staying humble. Like this past week, we had one of our leaders had a row at Victory at church.
I saw it on
a
social.
Whole row.
Brody
had a whole row at the church. I've had so many people come into that church. that I don't think if they would have worked at the bank, they would be going to church. I don't think
Definitely
if
not,
they would have
man.
worked somebody else, they'd be going to church. But they may have came here, may not have came here because Brody got a McLaren. They may or may not have at 21. You know what I mean? And so that's been the whole show, you know, some of the flash.
I agree, man. I like to say, you know, judgment is all in the eye of the person who wants to be doing the judging, right? And at the end of the day, if it leads to a great destination and it's done for the right reasons, right? As long as it's legal, as long as it's ethical, you do what you got to do to make sure that those people get out of where they're not supposed to be and into the place that they're supposed to be. And that's, you know, what you guys do. You know, I mean, you see it firsthand. You got a row of young people in a church who have maybe never been to church before. That is a life-changing experience. So to finish it off, man, you know, obviously there have been massive points in your life where things have opened up for you. Your perspective, your vision has been able to change from, you know, playing high school football, you know, having Coach Smith mold you into a different person, going to college and having things against you. You know, it's very clear those pivots in your life where, you know, you had to look at things differently all over again. For those people who are out there maybe that haven't started a business yet or thinking about starting a business, haven't started a family, like they really haven't gotten started in life yet, what's like the top 3 things that come to your mind of like the most important foundations that somebody can install into their life to give them the best chance of success?
Finding the right model of what it is that you're trying to duplicate in your life and trying to only listen to those people that are that model in that area of your life. Not everybody is the perfect model for every area of your life. So for example, your fitness trainer may be the perfect model for fitness, but not be the perfect model for business. And your business trainer may be a great business model, but not the perfect model for your marriage. And so I think if you could find, now you get lucky, you find somebody that's a jack of all trades, but if you're looking like, oh man, how do I become a good dad and a good husband? Find some good dads and good husbands and ask them questions and shut up and listen and implement those things. But try to ask people that are in a situation that you're in. So like if I'm a football coach, the challenges that I have as a football coach are different than the challenges that I would have as an insurance agency owner. And so I would try to find football coaches that were dads and husbands and ask successful dads and husbands that were football coaches, how did you handle being that and being this, and get them, because they may have different perspective than somebody else that isn't in that role. So in your business, in your area, in whatever it is that you're trying to be good at, get a model and ask them questions and implement what it is that they tell you to do in all areas of your life would be number one. Second one, I would say would be humility. You gotta find a way to stay humble. I think at the root of most problems is your ego. And so just finding a way to stay humble. Great things usually happen when you stay humble. And then I would say training the whole person. Inward growth precedes external growth, and the inward growth isn't always sexy. So mind, body, and spirit, you know, mentally developing yourself through books, audiobooks, podcasts, consistently investing into yourself. People always want to know, what should I invest into? What stock, what bond, what this, what that, what Bitcoin, what the first thing you should invest into is your mind. And it's usually the cheapest thing to invest into. Is a book, might cost you $20, but you got to do the work. And so mind, body, exercise, fitness, it's all tied together. Your health, people ask me, how can you run this late, this early, 39, 38, 39? What are you doing? Well, I'm eating healthy all day. I'm drinking water. I'm eating, I'm doing vitamins. It's the nutrition that's giving the energy. So the body, and then the spirit, that spirit piece of whatever your faith is. But for me, it's prayer, scripture, church, stuff like that, tending to the spirit. Those would be the 3 things. And if I could throw extra credit on it, nothing great's going to be accomplished if you don't find a way to have discipline. Discipline is doing the things that you know that you need to do, the way you need to do them, when you need to do them, regardless of how you feel. And you got to get that part, because there's things that you're not going to feel like doing. You know, I pound this into young people's heads all the time, even my own goddaughter. I don't feel like it, Uncle Simon. I don't feel like. I said, babe, if you only do things that you feel like doing, you're going to be broke. You're going to be in a tough situation. I'll show you all the people that do what they feel like doing. When you win is when you don't feel like doing it, and you do it anyway. That's how you win. So you have to learn to discipline yourself and apply discipline to your life of doing the things that you know you need to do regardless of how you feel, and understand that the process ain't sexy. Like, it's not all fun in games. It's not all sunshine and rainbows that you may or may not love. Like, I didn't come into the business say, oh my God, my dream is to be in the insurance business. But there was things in the insurance business that I could be myself in: coaching, developing people, competing, creating a family atmosphere, mentoring people. There's a lot of things that I was able to mold into what I do love to do. But there was some things on the journey now, when you see the life that I live right now. And I mean, just every day I wake up is like my birth. It's like Christmas. I love it. There's problems, but there's problems sometimes on your birthday too. There's problems on Christmas too. It's like every day is I love it. But there was some things that I had to do on the journey in order to create that freaking sucked. There's a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to do that I had to do over and over and over again, in the morning, at nighttime, on the weekends, evenings, weekends, travel, dealing with a bunch of stuff. And I think that people end up quitting on that journey as soon as they realize that, oh man, I thought I was supposed to just be passionate about it and chase my passion. It was all going to be great and sunshine and rainbows. Everybody got a plan till they get punched in the face. And it's about, the game don't even start till you get punched in the face. It's how do you respond? And if you stay tied to the discipline, doing what you need to do versus what you want to do, doing what you need to do versus what you feel like doing, over time with consistency, great things will end up happening for you.
I got one story to share with you, one final question. So on that topic of talking about doing the things that aren't very sexy, so this is actually a Cleveland story. So there was a reporter that worked with Belichick in Cleveland. And when Belichick went to New England, that reporter moved from Cleveland, worked for the Boston Globe. And after the Patriots run was over, another reporter sat down with this guy from the Boston Globe and asked him some questions. And he said, man, it must have been incredible to be at Patriots practice, to see it up close and personal every single day. It must have been like the most exciting thing ever. He said, buddy, you got it all wrong. It was the most boring existence on the planet, because all they did every single day was the same things over and over and over again. They practiced not until they got it right, but until they couldn't get it wrong. And that story stuck out to me. Like, you know, you would think being up close and personal with people at that level, winning at that level that many times, that it would be exciting. Said the most boring existence ever to cover that team, because they didn't share anything. They didn't get excited. They didn't get overjoyed after practice. It was just, do your job.
Do your job.
Show up, do your job,
Yep.
and win championships.
Yep.
And that has always stuck out to me as that's what it takes. It's the most mundane tasks that create the most success.
True.
So what's next, man? What's down the road? You know, what do you know, your vision obviously continues to grow. You know, one of the things that I always say to people, they say, where are you going to be in 5 years? I hate that question, because I feel like no matter what I answer, I would always be selling myself short.
Yeah.
So I say, you know, what's next? Like, what is out in front of you? What are you looking to accomplish? What does your legacy look like?
So there's a lot in that question. So specifically, what do I see in business, or what do I see in personal life? What do you mean by what do I see?
At the end of your life, what do you want to be known for?
Okay. So at the end of my life, I want to be known for leaving a legacy for other people to, like I think about all the time, some of my mentors that have impacted my life, and, you know, some of them are getting older now, and I don't tell them this, you know, but I think about, man, you know, if they were to pass before me, I would probably cry more about them at their funeral than I did when my own father, you know, passed away. that's the impact that these people have made on my life. And so I want to be like some of these people that have impacted my life, you know, like a Jim Tressel, like a Jim Serace, you know, my grandfather that wasn't my real grandfather, that was my grandmother's husband, you know, by the name of Chuck Nelson, you know, people that have impacted other people's lives, that even when they die, their journey, you know, is still gonna continue. And so I think you do that by serving people, helping people, and wanting people to do better than you by the things that you give them. And so that's what I want, you know, when I die. I want for people to say, man, I'm going to carry this legacy on, and I'm going to impact, you know, other people with the things that were given to me. And all they'll be passing on is the things that I learned, you know, from somebody else, you know, which is the biggest thing is mentally, physically, and spiritually having that balance, you know, in your life of things of like, what would I want my kids to do? What would I want my kids to know? You know, I would want my kids to work hard, you know, to know that if you're going to do anything, you got to give it 100% and go all the way in, to stay humble, to understand that you can't walk around feeling like you're better than anybody else based on the house that you live in or the cars that you drive. But at the same time, you can't walk around timid and allow people to bully you or push you around, you know, in certain settings, either that balance. And I would try to pass that on to them, you know, mind, body, and spirit, and those things.
Well, brother, I think you're well on your way, man. You know, just proud to be able to call you a friend, man. It's an honor to be able to sit down and unpack this story. Hopefully it was a good walk down memory lane for you, to talk about some of these things. And, you know, for you guys that may not be following Simon out there yet, it's at Simon Arias on all platforms, correct? Simon Arias on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Where else you want people to follow you?
TikTok.
TikTok? You a TikToker?
I did. That's Peter. Where am I? What's TikTok for us?
Simon Arias, I.
Simon Arias, I. And that's the third.
There you go.
'Cause I'm the third.
There you go.
My son's the fourth. So
there you go.
We're new to the TikTok game. Simon Arias, I is the TikTok.
And we'll put all those links in the show notes here, guys. But I hope you guys got a lot out of this, man. I can guarantee you people took pages of notes if they were taking notes. So until next time, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Powerful Perspectives. And, brother, thank you for being here,
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity,
Pleasure,
man. Love
Thank
you, dude.
Till next time, guys.